Happy Labor Day weekend. Evidently, a lot of people are out celebrating, right? As we have empty chairs here. I'm glad you're here because I would hate to be talking to myself. I do that enough anyway. Labor Day. Kind of a strange holiday. What does Labor Day mean to you? Is it really something to celebrate? Or do you just see it as the end of summer? The last hurrah of summer, the last cookout? And then school starts and everybody gets back into their normal, quote-unquote, routine? We can look at Labor Day many ways. And I did a little research to figure out what is the origin of Labor Day. I always hated Labor Day. It was right after my birthday and it meant school was starting. As an adult, I got to have a grown-up view of Labor Day. And now I got even more information. Because for Labor Day, the origin really is kind of interesting. In the 19th century, we had the Industrial Revolution going on. So factories were coming into vogue and people were working in the factories. And because they needed workers and they were trying to produce more and more, they started having the children come and work in the factories as well. And children were great labor because with child labor, they didn't pay them the same thing that they paid the adults. So it was cheaper labor. And people were working very long hours. They were glad to have a job, but they were really taken advantage of by the shop owners, by the people that owned the factories. And so labor unions started forming. And labor unions were looking at, what does this really mean? How can we have a balance in life? We should not have to work in the conditions that we've been working in. We should not have children working. They need to be in school getting educated. And so labor unions were trying to get rid of child labor. They were also trying to have more balance in life. They were advocating for an 8-hour workday, 8 hours of recreation, and 8 hours of rest. Now fast forward. How does your life go? Do you have 8 hours of work, 8 hours of recreation, and 8 hours of rest? To me, what that looks like is really balance in life. And we have more energy and we can do more when we have a balanced life. And so as I looked at the origins of Labor Day, we say Labor Day is to celebrate the achievements of workers. And we're all working somewhere. Newsflash, if you're a stay-at-home mom, you're working as hard or harder than dad that goes off to the office, right? You may not be recognized for it. If you're retired, I hear so many retired people say, I don't know when I had time to work. I'm so busy. So when we get busy with our lives, what is that about? And do we still have balance? Do we have our work? Do we have recreation? Time to play, and then time to rest. Because we need all of them. For Labor Day, part of the origin here came in 1894. And in 1894, there was the Pullman Railroad. And the railroad had people working long hours. They were working in not very good conditions. And the owners of the railroad decided that they weren't making enough money, and so they cut the pay of their workers. Well, the workers were up in arms. The union came in and said, we need to strike. That's a good way to get the attention of the people that own the railroad, and then we can have better working conditions, have less hours, and have better pay. And so they started striking. It was a peaceful strike. They were not causing problems, but they did interrupt the railroad service. the government decided this was not a good thing to have this interruption in service. And so they sent in 12,000 Army and U.S. Marshals to come in and get the people back to work. So this peaceful strike that was going on, all of a sudden, became bloody. As the Army and the Marshals were trying to force people back to work, 30 workers were killed. Kind of the bloody beginning of Labor Day. And at the time, we had a president, Grover Cleveland. Grover Cleveland decided, well, what I'll do is I'll make Labor Day a national holiday, and that will appease the labor unions. It will let them know that they've achieved something. And so in 1894, Grover Cleveland signed into law the national holiday of Labor Day. How does that relate to us today? What do we get to do? Do we have balance in our life? That's where this calls me. As I look at Labor Day and how do I celebrate and what do I think about this holiday, not just the end of summer, but it calls me to look at something deeper within myself, and that is, what kind of balance do I have in my life? Am I taking time to dedicate myself to work? And do I have time for play, the recreation? And do I take time to rest? Now I'm sorry because I know I'm stepping on some people's toes. But just so you know, I wore boots today because I knew I was stepping on my own toes. Because it really does have us stop to look. So one spiritual principle that I would like to talk about today, there's two main principles I'm going to talk about. One is our mental equivalent, and then the other is our oneness that Yes to Love was singing about. So for mental equivalent, this may be a new term for some of you. Our mental equivalent is what kind of thought do we hold in our mind? What is your thought about work? When you think about, I've got to go to work, is that exciting? Do you like your work? Or is it something that drains you? I put up here, is work hard or is it joyous? Is it energizing or is it draining? If we love what we're doing, we're going to have more energy for life. If we're just doing our work to get a paycheck, we're not really enjoying what we're doing, what does that say about our lives? Have you heard the phrase, life is short, eat dessert first? There's some wisdom there. Life is short. You need to enjoy your life. And if you're not enjoying what you're doing, then maybe you need to change jobs. There's two things here that you can look at. One, maybe you need to change jobs to something that's more of your passion. Something that energizes you, that builds you up and really calls to your heart to do. The other option is maybe you look at this from the spiritual principle of oneness. And with oneness, we're looking at how we are all divine. God, Spirit, is inside of each one of us. It's in our hearts. It's what beats our hearts. It's what gives us breath. What creates thoughts in our mind. That is Spirit living and moving in us and through us. And as we give expression to God in a variety of ways here, because look around, there's a lot of diversity here. There's even more diversity in the community outside. As we recognize that we are all one, we're all part of that divine human family. In that oneness, we can be called to serve one another. Are we willing to serve one another? Is life about being fun, having a good time, and enjoying living out your passion? Or is it the drudgery of, it's Monday morning, I have to go to work? What is our mental equivalent? Do we look at being able to go to work, to serve others and serve ourselves? Our mental equivalent of work and how we live life is going to determine the circumstances in our life. How much fun we're having. How much do we enjoy what we're doing? My son loves his job. By the way, his father does too. I love my job. But my son is the mascot for the Baltimore Orioles. So he is the bird. And he has been the bird for 9 years. Now, you know, I went through my period of, really, I paid for 4 years of college for me to be a mascot. But this kid loves what he does. He gets up and he is so excited to go do it. He said, "Daddy, I want to be the mascot as long as I can." He knows that there'll be a point in his life where he can't have the agility to do everything that he does. But he loves it. And yesterday when he called me and we were talking, he's like, "Oh, the mascot for the Ravens," that's the football team in Baltimore, "the Ravens mascot blew out his ACL. And so I'm doing some of his appearances for him." I'm so excited because he's always wanted to be an NFL mascot, the football mascot, because they have a much shorter season than the baseball. Baseball goes on forever. And so he's always wanted to be an NFL mascot, a football mascot. So he's getting a chance to do that. He said, "I hate the costume. I can't see out the mouth. I can't see out the eyes. Little kids are trying to give me a high five and I can't see them." He said, "I feel stupid." But he's learning, and it's an experience. But he said, "I love it. You know, I love what I'm doing." And he's not asking me to support him. Woohoo! Even better. So, do you love what you're doing? Do you love your life? And if not, then either find a way to get a job, a position, a volunteer place, whatever it is for you, that you love, that really feeds your soul, or change your attitude so that where you are, you see that you are serving humanity. You are serving the oneness that we have with Spirit and with all people. An example, this week we had our backyard resodded. The company that came in to do it was very professional, very courteous. Now these guys, you might call them grunt workers. They're digging out the old sod. They're hauling this off. They're hauling in rock to put in. They brought in fertilizer to put down. All of this work. And anytime we would go out, any of my neighbors would go out to look and to see what they're doing, they would always stop and say, "Can you see how this is really coming together? Do you enjoy this? Isn't this going to be great for you?" They loved what they were doing. And they were building value through the way they served. This wasn't just, "I'm here as cheap labor and I'm doing this." They were here living out their soul's need to serve God. And they were serving their customers in that way. I thought that was exciting. One of my neighbors was so inspired that one day they bought 10 pizzas and brought them to the guys for lunch. I think that was like a pizza apiece. And they were thrilled. It's like, woo, this is great. So how do we live our lives? Do we live it with a passion as these guys did? When they were getting done, they wanted to make sure that the sprinklers were positioned just right. They wanted to make sure there was good coverage on the grass, that we understood how to water, that we understood what to look for and when to call them. They started explaining to me the slope of my yard and how I should adjust watering because of how the slope was. It's like, I didn't know any of this. Everything was flat in Florida where I came from. So it was quite exciting. We have one of Ernest Holmes' students was Raymond Charles Barker. Raymond Charles Barker was a minister, and he had a large church. And he said, business is God in action. Business is God in action. Do we live and work as we are God in action? What he says is, when we consciously incorporate the Spirit, God, into our working lives, things change. And look at what he says. Disgruntled employees will mellow. Customers are appreciative. Co-workers are nicer. And a feeling of well-being infects the workplace. Why is this? It's because we have done our work in consciousness, in our own minds. We've done our work to allow Spirit to express as us in our work. We care about what we're doing. How do you do your work? Do you do just enough to get by? Or do you give service lavishly? These workers from this sod company were giving work lavishly. They went above and beyond to make sure everything was right, to make sure their customer understood what they were doing, to create the value for people in the work they did. And the response they got, the customers were appreciative. I tried to make sure whenever I was interacting with one of them that I knew their name so that I could call them by name. To me, that was a respect thing. And it wasn't, why isn't your name John? I can't say Jose. Miguel was programming our sprinklers. He knew much more about sprinklers than I ever did and taught me so much about it. It's like, thank you, Miguel. You are such a blessing here. It was great. Do we live our lives of service like that? Are we willing to give lavishly? So I think for us, that spiritual principle of oneness, seeing that we are connected with God and we give expression to God, that's why we live, that's why we serve, is so that we can be the expression of God here on earth. We show other people how God shows up in us. And if we know that our nature is love and peace and joy, that is the God within us, then that's what we want to show forth to the world. I hope it is. And it's not just in me, it's in each one of us. Each one of us has that opportunity to show forth that love, that joy, that peace that is our very nature. Raymond Charles Barker goes on to say that there's a reward that comes in the feeling of having served one's fellow man or having served God in service to one's fellow man. But we are apt to forget the service we perform for each other is not really for each other at all. In serving each other, we're serving the Christ. Serving the Christ. Christ, metaphysically, we're a metaphysical church. We look at above the physical here. Jesus' last name was not Christ. Jesus was the Christ. And Christ means the divine idea of man. Jesus was the Christ because Jesus recognized his oneness with the Father. The Father and I are one. He looked at this and said, all of the power of God is within me. When I believe, then I can do this. He didn't question, can something be done? If he was going to calm the storm, if he was going to heal a paralyzed man, he didn't say, I hope I can do this. He knew that he had that power within him because that was God's power living through him. And he said, what I do, you will do, and greater things. It's as we believe that we can do. And that's why Jesus always began by giving thanks. Thank you, Father, that you are here with me. Thank you that you hear my prayer. And then he would give his command. he would state what he wanted. That's what our practitioners do when they pray with you. They recognize that there is all this power that's available to us, and that you can take this and have this in your life, and they can know that truth for you. It's a powerful, powerful prayer. So look at our lives. See as we do our work. Are we joyous? And are we recognizing our connectedness with all people? When we recognize that, then we're able to know that life is good and very good. That we enjoy everything we do. We can never outgive God. God is always giving to us. And we can never outgive God. If we are volunteering, we will find more time, a greater sense of fulfillment, a greater sense of productivity, and we will build connections within our community. I've heard it said, if you want to get something done, ask a busy person. You know why? Because that busy person knows how to get things done. They're not just busy spinning their wheels, being frustrated. They know, chop, chop, let's get this done. If you need to find out how to organize something, ask Dorothy. Dorothy knows how to organize things. She's a great organizer. And she knows how to make sure that all the, I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And I love that about her. So do we have that kind of passion in our lives? Remember the balance here. In the Bible, there is a story of the master who is going away. And the master has 3 servants. And so he gives each servant a coin. And he goes away. 2 of the servants invest that coin. And they make more. And when the master returns and goes to collect his money, 2 of them have even more money to give him. The 3rd buried the coin in the ground. And the master was upset with him. Why is that? What is the message for us? The message is God gives us all gifts. We all have different talents, different things that we can do. Are you using them? Or are you sitting on your butt? Saying, oh, I can't do that. No, I can't speak. No, I can't sing. No. Well, let me tell you, maybe you have the gift of hospitality. Maybe you're the one that can welcome people into your home, that can make people feel comfortable enough to love themselves. We all have so many different gifts that we can give. And when we're willing to show up and give our gift, it makes the world a much richer place. So the problem wasn't that the man hid the coin. It was that he was not willing to use what was given to him. Are you willing to make a fool of yourself sometimes? To stand up and say, this is what I believe, this is what I'm going to do, even if you fall flat on your face? Thomas Edison said, it's not what I achieve. I learned from every failure that I had. And so we can learn from those things, and we can make our lives even better. Don't hide your gifts. Use your gifts. Let others enjoy what it is that Spirit has given to you. So a final story that I'd like to share with you. There was a woman that was strolling through a mall one day, and she saw a poster for a new flower shop. So she went into the new flower shop. When she got in there, she was really shocked. What she found was no vases, no arrangements of flowers. Behind the counter stood God. God said, "Hello, you can ask for whatever you want." And the woman stepped up and she said, "I want to be happy. I want peace, money, the capacity to be understood, and I want this for all of my friends too." Sounds pretty good. If you can get over she wanted all these things for herself. Kind of nice that she wanted them for her friends too. So God turned around to the shelf behind him. He removed some grains from different containers. And he handed the grains to the woman. He said, "Here, you have the seeds. Begin to plant them, because here we don't sell the fruits." We don't sell the fruits. Are you planting your seeds? Are you nurturing the seeds that you've been given? One way you might want to nurture the seeds is by giving yourself affirmations, talking to yourself. We talk to ourselves all the time, don't we? Are we saying good things to ourselves? Are we encouraging ourselves? Use of affirmations is a good way, a spiritual tool, I would say, to build ourselves up, to have what we want in life, to honor our work this Labor Day, to nurture ourselves and our life. And as we do that, we nurture other people. We give to other people, and we encourage them to nurture the seeds that they're planting. And if you don't like your life, guess what? Plant other seeds. There are many seeds there for you to plant. So you might need to change the seeds that you're planting in order to have the harvest that you want, the life that you want. Love your life. Enjoy your life. Energize yourself and energize all those around you by everything you do and everything you give. I've heard a quote that says, "We have the power within us to make life a bed of roses or a path of thorns." What kind of seeds are you planting? How are you nurturing yourself and the seeds that you've planted? What is your mental equivalent for life? And do you see yourself as one with everybody else? And in that oneness, share in your love and your service? It's your choice. It really is all about what we choose and how we want to experience life. Let us pray. I know that there is one power, one presence, one God that lives within us, that lives through us, that embraces us at all times. There is not a spot that God is not. And in that oneness with Spirit, I know that we each have the seeds within us to grow a great harvest. A harvest of love and joy, of excitement and exuberance for life. And I know that each of us does our work in consciousness so that we can nurture the seeds that we were given, the talents that we have. I know that for each one of us here, that we are expressions of the divine, and that we live from that very nature within us, giving life and giving expression to that one. For the truth of this, I am so grateful. And I release my word into the universe, into God that always says yes. Yes, whatever it is. Yes. And together we say, and so it is.